welcome to the Traveling Designer Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Rick Oberreiter, and this is episode 5. So happy New Year, everybody. And I come to you from the wonderful, at least outside, the wonderful town of Bakersfield, California. And why am I here? I will kind of answer that question as I move forward, so stay tuned. The first thing I should probably say is I think I've broken the cardinal rule of podcasting, and that is they always say to keep consistent in your episodes so you can keep the listener engaged. I don't think I've done an episode since July. A lot's been going on. I kind of use the rule that if I have something to say, that's when I'll say it, and I'll try to do the research and do the work to put together whatever it is that I want to say and try to say it in a somewhat coherent way. So I'm trying to change gears a little bit. Episode 5 was going to be about traveling alone. I will get to that, but I'm not quite prepared and ready. But I feel like I do have something to say, and I kind of want to just talk about what I've been up to since, like I said, the last episode was July. I believe, if I remember correctly, I was actually in my tent in Fort Collins in the rain when I did the last episode. So this one's a little bit different, but I thought this might be kind of cool because, if you're someone who's traveling or maybe wants to, you can kind of see the ebbs and flows of the traveling life as I'll kind of talk about what I've been up to for the last, few months. Kind of the mantra of the only plan is not to have one, and kind of take things like kind of as they've been going. So, so we should talk about, what's been going on. Like I say, I took my car actually to Colorado. That was back in June, I believe. So I spent June all the way until August in Colorado. That's where I lived for 15 years. And it was so awesome and so much fun, except for it was super, super hot. But it was fun because I had a chance to really hang out with a lot of my friends that I haven't really had a chance to really hang out with in a couple of years. I've been back a couple of different times, but essentially we get together and I ask everybody is like, what's your elevator speech for your life for the last 2 years? And that kind of sucks at times. So this time it was cool. I really got to hang out with people and have a chance to really like chat with them and see what's been going on with them and everything. So it's been awesome. So if I haven't thanked all the people back in Colorado, thank you everyone for hanging out with me and taking me in and all that good stuff. It was kind of cool because, like I said, I was in my car, I was tent camping around, and by the end of it, I was staying with a friend, so I ended up staying in a cabin. I had my own cabin in the mountains, so I went from tent camping in super, super hot to having my own cabin, which is pretty awesome. I really moved up in the world, and I guess, I don't know if it was one of my last nights, but it was sometime in the middle there. I came back from being in Denver and I was hanging out in this nice leather chair that was in the cabin on my computer doing some work, and a moose went by. I mean, it was so cool. So it was really awesome to be able to do that, and thanking to my friend Steph for letting me stay there. So that was kind of one of my highlights of Colorado as well. Another thing that happened when I was in Colorado is I met another traveler. Her name was Kelly, and she told me about the Escapers, which is an RV group, which I've knew a little bit about. I've been like on their Facebook group, but I never really paid a whole lot of attention. So this is something that's going to kind of come full circle a little bit. But when I was hanging out with her, she told me about an event they call a convergence that was happening in Bend that August, which was a little bizarre because I was kind of on my way back. I needed to go back to Bend because that's where I spent the winter in Bend, and that's where my camper was. So I thought it was a little serendipitous that the event actually was 7 miles away from where my camper was being stored. So, I mean, I had to go to that. So I kind of changed up my plans a little bit and then did my road trip to make it back to Bend. So after spending, 3 months in Colorado, my plan was always to kind of do an extended road trip back to Oregon and hit some of my favorite places. And that was, I got to go to the Tetons, a place that I love. And I actually, spent a summer living there. So I got to see some of that stuff up through that was in Jackson Hole, and then up through the Tetons to Yellowstone. Camped out in Yellowstone for a few nights. My main goal was to see a bear. I didn't. I even woke up one morning at like 5 a.m. and drove around, which is actually one of my most favorite things to do in Yellowstone, is to get up super early and go drive. And like as the sun's coming up, there's nobody out. It's almost like you have the place to yourself. But I saw lots of animals, no bears, tons of buffalo were really up close. It was actually really cool, but I did want to see the bear, but it didn't happen. That's okay. I have seen a bear there in the past. I saw a grizzly bear on a trip, and it was the same way, where I got up really early. And actually the day before, the bear was in this area called Hayden Valley. And of course, there's like 1,000 people there all watching this grizzly bear. So the next day I went back, and that's kind of where the buffalo always hang out too. And I'm sure it had to be the same bear, but I saw it on the other side of the road. And this time it was like me. There was nobody else there. So I was kind of hoping to have one of those experiences again. But it didn't quite work out. But that's, like I said, it was fine. It was beautiful. Got some amazing, the sun coming up. It was so cool. And after that, I headed up to Montana, which was cool as well, because I got to meet some of my Boulder friends who I saw, a couple weeks earlier, and they were on their way back. They were doing a road trip, so we met up in Bozeman. And so it was just kind of cool that worked out. We stayed at this campground where we had the most amazing neighbors with these two girls. They cooked us like a 5-star meal and got us drunk. So that was a super cool night. And then they went back on the Boulder. I had a chance then to hang out with a client who has this amazing house, and got to stay at her place for a couple of nights, and that was super fun. And then I moved my way to Idaho and got to go to another one of my favorite places, the Sawtooth Mountains, which I talked about in one of my previous podcasts of some of my favorite places to go. And spent a couple of days in that little area, did some cool hikes, hiked back up to these 2 lakes. It was super fun. And then down into Boise for a night, and then over to Bend, where I spent a week at the Convergence, which is what one of the escaper group calls one of their get-togethers. And basically, it's an RV group where essentially most of them are all, people in my age group. I would say, I think the age group actually at this one was probably like 28 to probably like in their 60s. And most of them probably more like, 35 and 50. Most people work full time, so like during the day, most people just worked. If people had free time, they kind of scheduled their own activities. Then at nighttime, we all, there would be activities. Usually a nighttime activity, or an outdoor activity, a hike or something. And then it kind of migrated into the nighttime. It's usually referred to maybe a cocktail or two, but it's a bunch of super nice people, and I met lots of great people, friends that I'll hopefully have for a long time. And that's one of the reasons I'm in Bakersfield, is because I'm on my way to actually meet a bunch of them for New Year's Eve, and then they're having their big annual event in Lake Havasu in like the second week of January, which they'll be like 4 times bigger than the one I went to in Bend. So that should be a lot of fun. So then after that was over, I had to hightail it to Washington. My plates were way overdue, and I was going to house sit for my parents. So I spent the month of September at my parents' house. The plan was just to spend the month there, get my tags for my camper. And it's always funny how things don't tend to work out the way you think they will, because as I'm getting ready to go get my tags, I'm looking in my safe in my camper for my title. And because I had to switch over from a place in Colorado to Washington, and no title, no idea where it was or where it is. So that took some time. So I was probably in Washington 3 weeks longer than I wanted to be. I had to start trying to figure out a way to get a new title. I had to call Colorado, blah, blah, blah. They eventually got one to me after the first round of paperwork didn't go through. And then after that too, I was actually trying to get my camper fixed. Nothing was wrong with it, but I just wanted someone to give it a good once over, and see if everything was still running okay. They had my camper for 3 weeks. I had it scheduled for like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I took it the night before. 3 weeks later, they get to it. So blah, blah, blah. I was in Washington a long, long time. So I did have a block of time because I got myself a temporary license plate or whatever. And I was like, all right, I've got about, 5 weeks. What should I do? I think my initial plan was I really wanted to go north into Washington and hit up to like Mount Rainier and do some of that. But you're starting to get into November. I wasn't really sure about weather, so I decided to hit the Oregon coast, which was one of the first things I did when I first started traveling. One of my first plans was doing the 101. So I thought that'd be cool to kind of re-hit some of those spots and then do some new things. So, and I knew my birthday is at the end of November. So I was like, all right, I'm going to time this out. I'm going to be in the Redwoods for my birthday. So that was kind of my plan. And it was awesome. It was awesome. I started in Pacific City, started working my way down. I saw some new things. I revisited some places I've been before. All in all, the weather was great. It was cool because the first 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I was on my own. Did a lot of hiking, caught up with work. It was great. And then when I got to Port Orford, which is for whatever reason just one of my favorite spots, through one of the escapers, actually one of the guys who helps plan the events, he did a video at this spot where it was $10 boondocking camping overlooking the ocean. So I ended up spending a good week there. And then there was some other escaper friends. They were traveling down the coast as well. So it just kind of worked out that it was better for me just to kind of hang tight where I was. So I stayed there for a little bit longer, and we hung out there for New Year's, or not for New Year's, for Thanksgiving. So I got to do the whole travel thing with a group of other people. And then we traveled all the way. I traveled with them all the way down to Crescent City. And then from there, from Crescent City, if you don't know, Crescent City is kind of like where the Redwoods start. And then my friend Micah, who has an RV and a trailer in Austin, Texas, drove his truck all the way to hang out with me on my birthday, which was super cool. So we ended up getting a cabin like along the Smith River, kind of up pretty close to the Redwoods, and hung out for a couple days there and did the hot tub, and we went hiking in the Redwoods and did a bunch of cool stuff. And then we went camping for a couple days too. So that was super cool as well. So I had lots of really awesome experiences. It was really different for me, especially traveling with some other, full-time travelers to kind of just have that experience, almost we, stayed put, and usually, we all kind of did our own thing at times. At nighttime, we would all converge into one of our trailers, and we, did movies and games and kind of, so it was for me, it was a whole new experience, because I'm usually one that travels alone, 98% of the time. So it gave me kind of a new perspective, which I really liked. I mean, all the people were nice, and yeah, it was really awesome. It was a really good experience. I'm looking forward to doing something like that again. Another cool story, when I was on the coast, I was in Newport, and I had a little issue with my camper, so I took it in. No big deal. The place had it for most of the day. And I didn't really want to drive and leave Newport, so I was staying in the state park. I decided to stay at this the RV park at the port, because it's right next to the Rogue Brewery, and I thought, that'd be really cool. So I pull in. When I'm going to pull in, there's an older gentleman in a golf cart, and he's asking me questions. We start chatting, and he's like, "All right, you go get checked in, and once you get checked in, I'll show you around." And he was in a golf cart, so I figured there was a lot there just at the port. The bridge is there, and the brewery is there. You've got the port, with a bunch of fishing boats and everything. So I figured he was going to come pick me up, in his little golf cart and show me around. And I did do a post about this on Facebook or in my blog. For some reason, I called him Sal. His name is not Sal. It's Clay. So if you're out there, Clay, I'm sorry for that. But so anyway, he ended up coming back like 30 minutes later, but not in the golf cart, but in his car. And me and my dog Maz, we jump in, and he goes on to drive me and shows me all kinds of stuff. We went over the bridge, and he was telling me the history of this historic bridge, and then over to this little area where all the process of the fishing is done, and talking about fishing boats and the fishing community, and took me to a couple other parts of town, and it was really cool. Like, he didn't have to do anything like that at all, but he was so nice. I got to hear about his life, and he's been a campground host there for like 12 years. He spent a bunch of time living in New Mexico, and now he's been living on the coast, and he's been learning all this stuff about, fishing and the fishing community, and kind of told me his knowledge. And then at the end, we had this old thing of bread that he brought with him, and we went and, I just kind of watched and took photos, and was slightly scared as he was feeding the seagulls, and he would throw the bread up, and seagulls would come and grab it. They would come and grab it out of his hand. I really thought they were going to rip his entire hand off. But it was, I got a couple good pictures, but it was really funny. And he was having, like, honestly, the freaking time of his life. It was really funny. So that was like one of my highlights was having him show me around and him take the time. I mean, one of the great things about traveling is all the cool people you get to meet, and all the cool things, fun things and nice things people do for you. So between Clay and then my escaper friends and Mike, and then, some of the hikes and some of the amazing campgrounds. I mean, I spent, all this time on the beach, and I saw whales and did some really awesome hikes. It was a fun 5 weeks. And then after that, I was weaving my way back and went to hang out with a friend in Brownsville, Oregon. And Brownsville is about 2 hours south of Portland, a little bit east of I-5. Know nothing about Brownsville. The first thing I learned about Brownsville is parts of a couple movies, which all of a sudden, slipping my mind, were filmed there. And I'll put it in the notes if I can't remember by the time the podcast ends, of what movie that was. I don't believe I forget that. But you drive into this town, and it's something like out of the 40s. It was around the holiday time, second week of December. So everything's all kind of lit up, and the town was just really cute. It actually had like a working downtown where people were there and hung out. They were actually doing their Stand By Me. I'm so sorry, the movie. Parts of Stand By Me was filmed in Brownsville. There's a scene with a bridge, not the big train bridge, but another bridge that was filmed there. The pie eating scene was also filmed there as well. So quick tangent. So at the nighttime that night, they were having their tree cutting, or the tree ceremony of turning the lights on. So like everybody's out hanging out, and it was like something out of a movie. Like everyone was super nice. Everybody's hanging out. The downtown is really cool. They did the lighting. After that, everybody went to the local salon to listen to a bunch of older people play bluegrass music, and they were really good. And then we went over and ate like gluten-free and organic pizza. It was, super fun. It was really nice of my friend to show me around and let me hang out. And then a couple days later, as I'm leaving, I'm just taking Mazzy for a quick walk, and I, getting ready to drive. Really needed a coffee, so there was a coffee shop that, said coffee. Couldn't quite tell if they were open or if they were not. Walk up, open up the door. Door opens. This is someone, kind of behind the counter, and he asks, if he's like, "What can I do for you?" And I asked him if he was open. He's like, No. He's like, "Yeah, what is it that you need?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just trying to grab a cup of coffee." He's like, "Oh yeah, come on in." And he made me a cup of coffee, gave it to me for free, and tipped him or whatever. But yeah, like, it's not like something he didn't have to do, but took the time out of his day. He was, they were closed for the day so they could clean. But super nice. Super nice for someone to do that. So Brownsville, if you're ever in Oregon, especially in, if you're on I-5 and you're just kind of like sick of the drive, pull off and spend a few hours in Brownsville. It's well worth it. So then after that, I migrated back up to Washington for Christmas and hung out with my family. That was fun. And then, except for the fact I was pretty much sick the entire time I was there for, about the 10 days I was there. And now I have left and I'm taking me 4 days to get to Arizona. And that's kind of brings me back to being here in Bakersfield, which I tried to avoid Bakersfield at all possible, but I just couldn't. So I've been through here before. Not the best town in the world, but hey, it's been good to me. I haven't had any bad experiences here, so it's been good. And tomorrow I will actually be in Arizona, where there's all kinds of cool things going on, which one thing should be super fun. I'm not sure what I can tell or not tell, so I'm just going to say nothing for now. Maybe I can do a podcast on that as well, which should be a good time. And then I could probably do a podcast on everything that's happening from New Year's to to the big event in Lake Havasu that's happening as well. So I feel like I've put in a lot of stuff super fast, but it's been only like 20 minutes. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of been my last few months. I think when the last podcast ended, all I knew was I was going to spend some time in Colorado. I didn't know for how long, and I knew I eventually had to make my way back to Oregon to get my camper, but I had no clue between what else was going to happen. So it's kind of interesting how that stuff works, and how I met someone that turned me on to this group that ended up in Bend, and now I'm on my way to Arizona, and being stupid and losing my title, and then switch gears, and I started to do the coast and not Washington, and blah blah blah. It's I think when you live the lifestyle like this, you've always got to kind of be ready to roll with the punches and be ready for an experience to kind of happen. And now basically I've got maybe my next 3 weeks mapped out, some of the things that are happening in Arizona. And after that, I have no idea what's going to happen, which is super exciting. What a way to start the new year, is to hang out with a bunch of cool people and then have kind of an open-ended schedule ahead of you. So that's kind of the life of a traveler. And I don't even think it's even, I feel like there's a lot of people out there who probably push the envelope tons more than me. But anyway, I think that's going to be it for this one. And I will do my best. For one of my resolutions for the new year would be to try to be a bit more consistent, but I'm still going to keep on the pace to where I'm only going to say something if I feel like I have something to say. So hopefully someone got some use out of this and enjoyed some of the stories, and I appreciate everybody who listens. And if anyone ever has anything they would want me to talk about, that'd be great. Or even has any input about traveling alone, or would like to be interviewed, or anything like that, because that is what I'm working on. I think that should be a good one. Might be always kind of fun to get another perspective. Just let me know. There's tons of ways to get a hold of me. So I always like to leave with a quote. So this is one from Jack Kerouac. Because in the end, you won't remember the time you spent working in the office or mowing the lawn. So climb that goddamn mountain. I think it's good words of advice, is to make sure you go out and do things. Go out and live life. Go explore. Get out of your comfort zone. All that good stuff. So I thank everyone for listening. There's many ways you can find the podcast. Pass it along to your friends. It'd be great. And until next time, go out and explore. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
To listen to all the episodes and to read my blog, go to www.travelingdesigner.co. That's www.travelingdesigner.co.